My hands were raw from scrubbing floors for 18 years, but seeing my daughter, Chloe, marry into royalty made every tear worth it. Or so I thought. At the rehearsal dinner, surrounded by crystal chandeliers and elite society, her father-in-law, Arthur, raised his glass. I waited for him to acknowledge the mother, who worked 3 jobs to put Chloe through law school. Instead, Arthur looked right past my custom dress, gestured to my calloused hands, and said to the caterer, "Make sure the help clears the empty champagne flutes before the toast." The room went dead silent. Chloe looked down at her plate and said nothing. That night, crying in my cheap motel room, I realized 2 things. They thought I was nobody, and they had no idea who actually owned the land Arthur's multi-million-dollar company was built on. Comment your city below, because this story gets wild. My name is Elena Vance, and at 38 years old, my hands carry the rough, calloused history of a life spent breaking my own back, so my daughter, Chloe, wouldn't have to suffer. When her father walked out on us the night she turned 2, he left me with $24 in my checking account and a mountain of unpaid bills. I didn't have time to break down or cry. Instead, I put on a pair of rubber gloves and took every cleaning shift I could find. For 18 relentless years, I scrubbed office buildings until 3 in the morning, prepped kitchens before dawn, and skipped meals just so Chloe could have brand new school clothes and tutors. When she got accepted into a top-tier law school, every single burn and ache felt like a badge of honor. I gave up my youth, my health, and every personal dream I ever had to build a golden future for my girl. Have you ever sacrificed everything for someone you love, only to wonder if they noticed? Let me know in the comments, because what happened next broke my heart into pieces. When Chloe started dating Julian, I was happy for her. But meeting his family felt like stepping into a cold, hostile world. His father, Arthur Sterling, was a real estate tycoon who treated human beings like balance sheets. From our very first meeting, Arthur and his wife made no effort to hide their disdain for my working-class roots. They'd exchange smirked glances whenever I spoke, making subtle digs at my simple clothes and basic apartment. But I swallowed my pride for Chloe's sake, convincing myself that their snobbery didn't matter as long as Julian loved her. Everything exploded at the rehearsal dinner in a 5-star venue. Surrounded by crystal chandeliers and elite society, Arthur raised his glass for a toast. I sat up, foolishly expecting him to acknowledge the mother who worked 3 jobs to raise the bride. Instead, Arthur looked right through me, gestured toward my worn, calloused hands, and called over a caterer. "Make sure the help clears these empty flutes before the speeches start," he said coldly. The room froze. I looked at Chloe, waiting for her to defend me. She just stared at her plate in silent shame. I left that dinner with my cheeks burning and tears blurring my vision, driving straight past my tiny apartment to my late grandmother's abandoned farmhouse. It was a crumbling relic on the edge of town, the only piece of history my family still possessed. Devastated and unable to sleep, I decided to spend the night sorting through the dust-covered attic, desperately searching for anything I could sell to pay off the last of my mounting debts and finally break free. Tucked inside a rusted iron tin behind stacks of yellowed newspapers, my fingers brushed against a thick, leather-bound folder. Inside was a faded land deed from 1927, along with commercial land rights and an unrecorded historic lease agreement bearing my great-grandfather's signature. As I wiped the dust from the brittle pages, a familiar corporate name stamped at the top made my heart stop. The lease wasn't for some random plot of farmland. It covered 30 acres right in the heart of the city's commercial district, the exact location where Arthur Sterling's multi-million-dollar luxury plaza now stood. The next morning, I took the heavy leather folder directly to a senior real estate attorney downtown. As he carefully spread the yellowed documents across his desk, his expression shifted from polite skepticism to total shock. He explained that my great-grandfather had signed a strict 99-year commercial land lease, giving a local developer building rights, but retaining full ownership of the actual dirt beneath it. When Arthur Sterling acquired the developer's company decades later, his legal team made a catastrophic oversight. They completely missed the lease's expiration clause. That 99-year lease had expired precisely 30 days ago, without any renewal filed or requested. Because no extension was executed, every structure built on those 30 acres, including Arthur's flagship luxury shopping mall and corporate headquarters, had legally reverted to the landowner. I sat frozen as the attorney looked at me over his glasses and delivered the news that changed everything. I wasn't just a grieving mother with calloused hands anymore. I was the sole legal owner of the land beneath Arthur Sterling's entire financial empire, and he had no idea what was about to hit him. The morning of the grand wedding reception arrived, but I didn't show up wearing my cheap dress as a quiet guest. Instead, I walked into the country club's grand ballroom accompanied by my attorney and a sharp-suited sheriff's deputy. Arthur Sterling was standing on stage under towering floral arches, holding a champagne glass and boasting to his high-profile investors about his company's massive expansion plans. The room fell dead silent as my footsteps echoed across the marble floor. Arthur's face contorted in anger as he saw me approaching the stage. "I thought I made it clear that staff and guests use different entrances, Elena," he sneered into the microphone, attempting to humiliate me one last time. My attorney stepped forward, handing a thick manila envelope directly to Arthur, while the deputy stood guard beside us. "Mr. Sterling," my lawyer declared loudly enough for every investor to hear, "you're being officially served with an immediate cease and desist order, alongside an eviction notice for illegal commercial trespass on Mrs. Elena Vance's private land." Arthur's smirk instantly vanished as he pulled out the documents. Arthur's face drained of all color as his eyes scanned the legal notice. Whispers erupted across the ballroom like wildfire, and his top investors immediately swarmed him, demanding to know if their multi-million-dollar investments were built on stolen land. In a matter of seconds, the arrogant billionaire looked completely shattered. Panicked, his lead corporate attorney rushed over, took one look at my original 1927 land deed, and whispered into Arthur's ear. Arthur turned back to me, his hands trembling as he realized he had zero legal leverage. The man who had called me the help just 2 nights ago was now practically begging. "Elena, please," he stammered, his voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "We can settle this privately. Name your price." Chloe stood in the crowd, tears streaming down her face, as she finally saw the immense strength of the mother she had been ashamed of. I looked Arthur straight in the eyes and made my conditions crystal clear: 99 years of unpaid back rent, full market profit sharing, and a public, written apology delivered right here, in front of every guest. Arthur had no choice but to sign the new agreement on my exact terms, turning his fortune into my lifelong passive income. The man who had sneered at my calloused hands was now paying off millions in back rent just to keep his doors open. After the crowd cleared, Chloe approached me with tears in her eyes, finally apologizing for her silence at the rehearsal dinner. I forgave her, but I made one thing clear: real love respects where you came from, and I would never allow anyone to diminish my worth again. I used my new fortune to restore my grandmother's farmhouse, set up a charity for single working mothers, and retire for good. Looking back, those 18 years of hard labor didn't make me the help. They gave me the resilience to stand tall when it mattered most. Never let anyone judge your journey or mistake your quiet sacrifices for weakness. Would you have forgiven Arthur and Chloe after everything? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories.